Furthermore, Sarah has been raising 3 children alone these past few years, and life has been very tight. If I can really pay off over $100,000 in debt within 3 months, that would completely prove my extraordinary ability to make money. In that case, I can also share Sarah's burden, and she won't have to work so hard anymore. Lynn looked at me, her eyes serious. All right, Jack Carter, I hope you can do what you say. Otherwise, I definitely won't let Sarah be with you. Nor will I let you take Lily, Beth, and Little Fragrance, Hongni. Assuming this is the third sister's name, it would likely be Americanized, e.g., Faith or another name, but for now, keeping the placeholder away. Hearing Lynn say this, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely do what I say. Just wait and see." Lily and Beth were at home. Because of Lynn's instructions before she left, the two didn't dare to sneak out and follow, but their hearts were filled with anxiety. "Big sis, why do you think Auntie Lynn and Mr. Jack aren't back yet?" Beth asked. Lily shook her head, her voice worried. "I don't know, but looking at Auntie Lynn's expression just now, she must have been very angry." Sigh. Lily sighed. Beth looked outside again and then said, "Big sis, isn't today the day for the test results? Do you think we're really Mr. Jack's daughters?" "I don't know, but I really hope we are Mr. Jack's daughters," Lily said, lowering her head. "Me too. I think Mr. Jack is very nice, and he feels very close, so I like him a lot," Beth nodded, looking at Lily seriously. Though they said this, the two little girls were extremely uneasy in their hearts, afraid they weren't my daughters. But at the same time, they were eagerly anticipating the DNA test results, hoping they could be my daughters. Not long after, Lynn and I returned home together. Seeing us return together, Lily and Beth immediately ran over happily. "Auntie Lynn," the two of them glanced at Lynn, calling out tentatively. Seeing Lynn's serious expression, the two little girls' hearts felt anxious again. Lynn looked up at Lily and Beth, then glanced around and said, "You two come into the room with Auntie. I have something to tell you." I called Lynn back. "Lynn, just tell them the results right here." Lynn remembered how the two little girls had dared to hide it from her and secretly follow me for the DNA test. She still felt a bit dissatisfied in her heart, but then she thought, she had to tell them anyway, so telling them in front of me was fine. Lynn looked at the two little girls and said, "Lily, Beth, I believe you've guessed it already. Jack Carter is indeed your father." After hearing Lynn, Lily and Beth immediately widened their eyes in astonishment. Both of them looked towards Lynn at the same time. "Auntie Lynn, are you saying we're really Mr. Jack's daughters?" Lily asked Lynn excitedly. Lynn looked at the two little girls and then nodded. Seeing Lynn nod, Lily and Beth immediately jumped up with joy, saying excitedly, "That's great, we finally have a dad." The two little girls were truly overjoyed in their hearts, they didn't expect to actually be Mr. Jack's daughters. Seeing the two little girls' excitement, my heart was also filled with immense joy. I walked over and patted their heads. Lily and Beth looked at me and cheered happily, "Daddy." Hearing their daddy, a strong emotion surged in my heart, and my eyes also reddened. This feeling was much more intense than before when Lily, Beth, and I were pretending to be father and children, and they called me Dad. Because this time, I really was their dad. Lily said happily, "That's wonderful, I have a dad." Beth was also extremely joyful. Then, as if thinking of something, she raised her small fist in the air and mumbled, "Let's see who dares to say we're fatherless children anymore. Let's see if I don't give them a good beating." The two little girls were extremely happy, and a slight smile also appeared at the corners of Lynn's mouth. Because she had never seen the two of them so happy. She said something to me, asking me to look after the children, as she had something to do downstairs. Then she went out, preparing to call Sarah again to inform her that I had returned. But in the end, she still received a notification that Sarah hadn't returned to her hotel room yet. Lynn hung up the phone and returned home. She looked at her watch, it was already 11 in the morning. She then said to us, "Today is a happy day, let's go out to eat." "Okay. My treat," I said with a smile. Lily looked up at me and Lynn and said happily, "Auntie Lynn, Daddy, let me treat. We've earned money these past few days, we're little rich ladies now, you know. How can we let you treat? Let Daddy." "Daddy has also earned a lot of money these past few days," I said, smiling and patting Lily's head. Lynn smiled at us. No, let me treat. Jack Carter, you keep your money to raise your children, don't spend it. Raising 3 children was no small expense. Sarah's salary in St. Louis was considered quite good, but raising these 3 little rascals, her hands were still very tight. Moreover, my family still owed over $100,000. She didn't want me to spend money, hoping I would pay off the debt soon so I could give Sarah and the children a good life. I smiled and said, Lynn, Lily, don't argue anymore. Inviting everyone to eat, how can we let my daughter pay? It must be a man like me who pays. Besides, Lynn, don't overthink it. What I told you before was absolutely not bragging. I know my own ability to make money. I know initial capital is very hard to accumulate, but this month, earning $100,000 is not a problem for me. Lily immediately said, Auntie Lynn, my dad really knows how to make money. Dad just took us to sell flowers. Normally, when I sell by myself, I only earn a few dimes a day. But when Dad took us to earn money, we earned over $1,000 in 3 days. Dad gave all the money to us. If Dad went to earn money by himself, he would definitely be very capable. Beth also chimed in to defend me. That's right, Dad is super capable. I want to learn from Dad too, to earn a lot of money. Hearing Lily and Beth say this again, Lynn then remembered that the 2 of them had told her before about me leading them to earn over $1,000 in a few days. At that time, she thought Lily and Beth were exaggerating. But at this moment, Lily ran into the room, took out a money bag, and opened it for Lynn to see. It was full of money. All $10 bills, $5 bills, $2 bills, and even coins. Auntie Lynn, we're not tricking you, Dad really led us to earn a lot of money. Because they had already given me money for the dog and clothes, this bag didn't have a full $1,000, but it did have $983. So much money, they had never dared to imagine it before. Lynn was also very surprised. She didn't expect me to actually lead Lily and Beth to earn nearly $1,000 just by selling flowers. This income was equal to her entire month's salary. And this was just the money I led the 2 little girls to earn in a mere 3 days. In her heart, her doubts about my ability to make money had lessened considerably. However, regarding my claim that I would earn $100,000 in a month, and even pay off over $100,000 in debt within 3 months, she still maintained a skeptical attitude. After all, that was too unbelievable. Especially for someone like me who had no capital at all. That might be even harder than reaching for the sky. But right now, it was just going out for a meal, it wouldn't cost much, less than $100, so she didn't argue with me about treating anymore. Moreover, now that I had just reunited with my daughters, I probably wanted to show off my fatherly capabilities a bit in front of the 2 little girls. Immediately after, she said, All right, Jack Carter, then you treat for this meal. I smiled and nodded. At this moment, Beth looked at me, her eyes sparkling, and said with a smile, Daddy, why don't we buy groceries and cook at home? It's delicious and cheap. Actually, it wasn't just because it was cheap, but because yesterday when they ate at the foot of Ulu Mountain, she heard Lily say I cooked very delicious food, so she also particularly wanted to eat food cooked by me. As soon as Lily heard this, she immediately chimed in, That's right, I want to eat too. Beside her, Lynn looked at me with a surprised expression and asked, Jack Carter, you know how to cook too? I smiled and patted the 2 little girls' heads, then looked at Lynn and said, You'll know when you see it later. Lily glanced at me, then giggled and said to Lynn, Daddy cooks delicious food. Lynn looked at me with a skeptical expression. I chuckled and then took the 2 little girls' hands, let's go buy groceries. Lynn looked at me and said, I'm not going, you guys go. Turn left for 500 meters, there's a farmer's market. The food there is cheap, you go by there. I'll cook at home. Leaving the house, if she went out with me and the 2 children, she was afraid people would misunderstand them as a family. To avoid misunderstanding, she didn't go along. Moreover, I had already taken Lily and Beth out to play for several days, so she didn't need to worry that I couldn't look after children. Hearing Lynn say this, I nodded, then led the 2 little girls towards the farmer's market. I held Lily's and Beth's hands. The 2 of them chattered nonstop along the way, and I also patiently explained things to them. What do you 2 want to eat today? I asked while holding the 2 little girls' hands. Daddy, I want to eat sweet and sour pork ribs. Lily said, looking at me with crinkled eyes and a coquettish tone. Hearing Lily say this, I immediately smiled and nodded, then let's buy pork ribs. As soon as Lily heard this, she jumped up with joy, then pulled my sleeve and shook it, yay! Daddy is the best. Beth also clapped happily, that's great. Then I want to eat beef meatballs, spicy fish balls, and sour fish soup. Okay. Dad remembers it all, I said with a smile. I went to the farmer's market with the two little girls, chose a few pounds of pork ribs, some meat, a fish, and also bought some green vegetables, potatoes, green onions, and some soy sauce. After buying the ingredients, I led the two little girls home. Lynn saw me carrying bags full of groceries and said with a smile, "Why did you buy so many things? It's all what the two little rascals want to eat." "You guys sit and play first, I'll go cook," I said, looking at Lynn. Hearing me say this, Lynn nodded, "Okay, you go cook quickly." I brought the groceries into the kitchen and began to show off my skills. A little later, the two little girls also ran into the kitchen. At this time, I had almost finished cooking. I quickly wiped the sweat from my forehead with my hand and said with a smile, "What are you two doing running in here? Go out quickly, Dad is almost done." Lily saw the sweat on my forehead, immediately ran out to get a tissue, and brought it in for me. I didn't take it, just bent down, and Lily then used the tissue to wipe the sweat for me. Very quickly, I finished cooking. Lynn and the two little girls sat down at the dining table. I served each of them a piece of sweet and sour pork ribs. Beth put the pork rib in her mouth and took a bite with a crisp crack. This pork rib tasted exceptionally delicious. Beth couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, so delicious." Hearing Beth say this, Lynn also couldn't help but pick up a piece and put it in her mouth. As soon as she swallowed, Lynn looked at me in astonishment. It was truly too delicious. She had never eaten such delicious sweet and sour pork ribs. Looking at the expression on Lynn's face, Lily lowered her head and ate a piece of sweet and sour pork ribs. Instantly, a sweet and refreshing taste, a warm current spread in her mouth. "Daddy, your cooking is really delicious." Lily looked up at me, her big, round eyes smiling like flowers. "If it's delicious, eat more," I said with a smile and a nod. Beside her, Lynn couldn't wait and started trying other dishes. The taste was also super amazing. "So delicious, Jack Carter, your cooking skills are even better than those several star chefs in restaurants outside," Lynn said, looking at me with praise. She really didn't expect a man like me to cook so delicious. Moreover, I looked so young and could already cook such delicious food, unlike the men in her company, none of whom knew how to cook. It seemed that in the future, Sarah was in for a treat. Hearing Lynn's praise, I just smiled. At this moment, Lily looked up at me and said, "Daddy, will you teach me how to cook so deliciously in the future too?" "Of course." I nodded, then reached out and gently pinched Lily's fair, chubby cheek, saying dotingly, "As long as Lily wants to learn, Dad will definitely teach you how to cook." Lily immediately showed a joyful expression. Beth, on the other hand, looked at me with a happy expression and said, "That's great, then can I often eat food cooked by Dad in the future?" "Of course." I nodded, then continued to serve food to Lily and Beth. "You two little rascals, whatever you want to eat in the future, Dad can make it for you." "Yes. Daddy is the best." Beth cheered. Lily sat beside me, looking at me, her heart filled with excitement. They finally had a dad. In the future, no one would dare bully them anymore. Moreover, Dad could also cook delicious food for them. After eating, Lynn told me to take the two little girls to the living room to play, while she stayed in the kitchen to wash the dishes. A little later, I walked in, looked at Lynn washing dishes, and said, "Lynn, I want to discuss something with you." "What is it?" Lynn stopped her hands, looking at me with a puzzled expression. I said, "I want to take Lily and Beth to live with me." "No way." Lynn refused firmly. I showed a helpless expression, but I also knew Lynn couldn't possibly let go of her guard against me so quickly, so I didn't say anymore and changed the subject. "Then can I take Lily and Beth out to play? I'll bring them back before 8 p.m. Hearing me, Lynn was silent for a moment, then nodded, "Okay." Seeing Lynn agree, I smiled and said, "By the way, where did Sarah go that she hasn't come back yet?" "Atlanta, she'll probably be back in about a week," Lynn explained, looking at me. Changed Guangzhou to Atlanta for American context, then can you give me her contact information? I want to talk to Sarah a bit, I said. Lynn shook her head. I don't know her phone number over there either. You wait for her to come back and then talk. She still hadn't told Sarah about me yet, so she also didn't know what Sarah thought. Moreover, Sarah's matter over there was a bit troublesome this time, and she didn't want to distract Sarah. As soon as I heard this, I knew Lynn didn't want me to contact Sarah, so I didn't ask further. Then, I left the kitchen, went into the living room, looked at the two little girls, and said, Dad just talked to your Auntie Lynn. This afternoon, Dad will take you out to play. That's great, that's great. Beth jumped up happily after hearing this. Lily smiled and nodded, then walked to the kitchen door, looked at Lynn, and said, Auntie Lynn, we're going out to play with Dad. Go ahead, Lynn said, smiling and nodding at the two little girls. Then, the three of us went out together. Beth pulled my hand, then looked at me and said, Daddy, can we go see the puppy? I patted Beth's head and said with a smile, of course, we can. Hearing me agree, Beth cheered with joy, that's great, I can finally go see the puppy. I smiled and patted Beth's head, then led Lily and Beth towards the White Cloud Motel where I was staying. Assuming White Cloud Motel is a generic name not needing specific Americanization, or it could be changed to something like the Bluebird Inn if preferred. Arriving at the White Cloud Motel, I led Lily and Beth into the reception area. The motel owner immediately smiled at me and said, Little Jack, is this your daughter? I looked at the motel owner and nodded, yes, it's my daughter. She looks so pretty. You're so lucky to have such a beautiful daughter, the motel owner said, looking at me with admiration in her voice. Hearing the owner, I just smiled. Lily looked at me and asked, Daddy, who is she? That's the owner of this motel. You two call her Auntie, I said, smiling at Lily. Hello, Auntie. Lily and Beth greeted the owner in unison. Such good little girls, so polite. No wonder they grew up to be so beautiful, the owner giggled, looking at the two of them. Hearing the owner's praise, Lily and Beth immediately blushed with embarrassment. Seeing the two little girls' embarrassed expressions, the owner smiled at me and said, Little Jack, are they twins? Auntie, we're not twins, we're triplets. We have another younger sister, Beth explained, looking at the owner. Wow, triplets? The owner looked at me in astonishment. This little Jack is too blessed. Giving birth to 3 daughters at once, and they're so beautiful. I smiled and nodded. Little Jack, you're really amazing. The owner smiled, giving me a thumbs up. This little Jack's luck was really extraordinary, having 3 adorable children at once. The owner's heart was filled with admiration. People say daughters are their parents' little comforters, so she also wanted a daughter, but her own belly wouldn't cooperate. Little Jack was still the best, having 3 daughters in one go. Little Jack, your little daughters are so cute. You have to take good care of them, the owner said with a hearty laugh, looking at me. That's for sure. I'll take good care of them, I said with a smile. I'll take them to their room first. Okay, the owner said. Then I led the 2 little girls upstairs. As soon as I opened the door to the room, I saw the little puppy wagging its tail at the door. As soon as Beth saw the puppy, she immediately ran over and hugged it. I stood at the door, watching Beth hugging the little dog, a faint smile unconsciously appearing at the corners of my mouth. Lily stood there, observing the layout of the room. One look and you could tell this place must have been tidied up neatly by me. Clean and warm. It seemed Daddy really was a very meticulous person. Daddy, why don't we name the puppy? Beth said happily, hugging the puppy and looking at me. I looked at the little darling and nodded. Okay, then what name do you want to give it now? I don't know, Beth shook her head. Lily also shook her head, I don't know either. I looked at the 2 little girls' appearance and couldn't help but laugh. Lily thought for a moment, then looked at me and said, Daddy, the puppy keeps barking woof woof, why don't we call it Lucky? Changed Vong Vong to Lucky for American context, implying good fortune. Lucky? I was stunned for a moment. This little girl had some thought in naming the puppy. Lucky. Okay, let's call it Lucky. I nodded. The name Lucky sounded pretty good. Looking at Lily and Beth, a hint of gentleness flashed in my eyes, and then I reached out and patted Lily's head. I suddenly felt that my life had added a new color. I looked at Lily and Beth and said with a smile, "All right, let's take Lucky out to play together." "Yes, yes." Both of them nodded in unison. I led Lucky out of the motel with the two little girls. "Daddy, where are we going now?" Beth asked, blinking her big eyes at me. I smiled at Beth. "Now let's go buy some food and clothes for Lucky." "That's great, let's set off right away." Beth clapped happily. Lily stood beside her, frowning slightly. Although they could now sell flowers with Dad to earn money, they still had to save and couldn't spend extravagantly. But seeing Dad and Beth both very happy, she didn't say anything more. I led Lily and Beth towards the pet store. Along the way, many passers-by cast admiring glances towards us. The three of us, father and children, walking on the street were indeed very eye-catching, quickly attracting countless gazes, especially since the two little girls grew up to be truly adorable, making people love them. They also admired that I was so young and already had such good fortune. Look at how happy and sweet this family of three was. I led the two little girls to the pet store where I had bought Lucky. The owner saw me leading the two little girls and hurriedly greeted me warmly. "Young man, what are you here to buy?" I looked at the owner and said, "I want to buy some dog food and clothes." As soon as the owner heard this, he immediately said, "All right, please follow me over here." The owner led us to the warehouse next door, looked at me with a smile, and said, "Young man, this is all dog food and puppy clothes. Please see what kind you need." I looked at the owner with a smile and said, "Please introduce some dog food to us first." The owner took down a few bags of food and handed them to me. "We usually feed our dogs these 2 or 3 kinds, but this Pure Bliss brand, or another common American dog food brand name like Blue Buffalo or Purina Pro Plan, is what we often feed Samoyeds, so I highly recommend this one." I took the bag of food, looked at the owner, and nodded. "Okay, then let's get this one." Then, the owner led us to choose clothes for Lucky. I let the two little girls choose the styles they liked. Finally, the two of them chose a heather gray t-shirt, which looked particularly cute. Beth looked at Lucky's clothes and said, "Little Lucky, your outfit looks so cool." Hearing this, Lucky immediately barked woof woof at me a few times. "Ah, Daddy, Lucky is so cute," Lily said, smiling at me. I smiled and nodded. Then Lily and Beth chose 3 more sets of pet clothes, and I asked the owner to wrap them up. After buying the things and paying, I carried the 2 bags and left the pet store with the 2 little girls. "Daddy, can we take Lucky home first now?" Lily asked me. I nodded. "Okay, let's go home first." "Lucky, let's go." Beth led Lucky towards home. I carried the things and followed behind Lily and Beth. Lily walked over to me and said, "Daddy, let me help you carry them." "No need, darling," I said, looking at Lily with crinkled eyes. "Dad can carry them himself." I would never let my precious daughter do such heavy work. Hearing this, Lily gave up and then walked home with me. Beth still led Lucky into the house. After returning home, I first helped Lily and Beth set up Lucky's dog bed. Lucky circled the room a few times, then started barking yap yap. Lucky looked at Lily and barked woof woof twice. "Good boy, Lucky," Lily said to Lucky. I smiled, watching Lily and Beth already playing happily with Lucky, and said, "Dad will take you to the park to play today." "Are you going?" Lily and Beth thought for a moment, then shook their heads together. Lily looked at me and said, "Daddy, we want to go earn money." "Right. Earning money is much more fun," Beth chimed in. Besides, it was also very fun for them to sell flowers with Dad to earn money. When they earned enough money, they could take Mom to the doctor. I smiled and patted their heads. "Okay. Let's go sell flowers and earn money together." Yay! Lily and Beth jumped up happily. Then, I led Beth and Lily out the door. Just as we went out, we met Mrs. Miller, changed Bong Mai to Miller for American context, from upstairs in the hallway. Mrs. Miller saw Lily and Beth and immediately smiled. "Lily, Beth, where are you two going now?" "Hello, Mrs. Miller." "We're going out to play with Daddy," Beth said, smiling at Mrs. Miller. As soon as Mrs. Miller heard this, she immediately glanced at me in surprise. This man in front of her was their father? She had never heard about Lily's father before. Why suddenly? Your father? Mrs. Miller asked Lily and Beth doubtfully. Beth and Lily nodded in unison, yes. This is our biological father. Hearing the two little girls' affirmative tone, a radiant smile immediately appeared on Mrs. Miller's face. Oh my, Lily and Beth's father is so handsome! Mrs. Miller exclaimed. Hee, thank you for the compliment, Mrs. Miller. Lily giggled, looking at Mrs. Miller. I looked at Mrs. Miller and also politely nodded slightly. Then, Mrs. Miller smiled at me and said, young man, since you're their father, then please take good care of them. Their lives have been too hard these past few years. As their father, you can't let little Sarah and the children suffer like this anymore. Seeing Mrs. Miller talking to my daughters, I also knew the relationship between her and them wasn't bad, so I said seriously to her, Mrs. Miller, I will take good care of Sarah and the children. I was far away before and didn't know the situation. Now that I'm back, I will definitely take good care of them. Mrs. Miller nodded, her eyes filled with joy, then waved goodbye to Lily and Beth. Go on, go on. Okay. Then we'll go first. Goodbye, Mrs. Miller. Beth and Lily waved goodbye to Mrs. Miller, smiling. I led Lily and Beth on the way to the flower shop and saw a farmer standing by the roadside selling a few pots of orchids. I glanced over, and suddenly my eyes lit up. I led Lily and Beth over. I squatted down and looked at the pot of orchids in front of me. I discovered this was a pot of jadeite orchids. Could be a fictional rare orchid, or changed to a known valuable American orchid if preferred, but jadeite orchid can work as a unique element. The flowers that bloomed were also a jade-like emerald green. Moreover, the petals were translucent and lustrous, emitting a faint fluorescence, as beautiful as jadeite. And in this pot of jadeite orchids, there were 3 stalks. One stalk, in later generations, would be worth $50,000. Adjusted currency. So, if this pot were left to later generations, it could be sold for a high price of $150,000. But this was 1999, and prices weren't very high yet. According to the orchid market situation at this time, this pot of jadeite orchids could also be sold for $20,000. I looked at this pot of orchids, then looked at the ordinary orchid pots beside it, and then asked the price of the ordinary orchid pots. These orchid pots are $30 each. Then what about this pot? I asked, pointing to the jadeite orchid pot, trying to keep my expression calm. If you want to buy this pot, it's $25, the man selling orchids said. This pot of orchids was dug up from the mountain by his nephew and had been for sale for half a month, but no one had bought it yet. Because the flowers of this pot were green, while the flowers of the other pots were all red. Many people like red, for good luck. Green sometimes had less favorable associations for some. So, this pot of orchids was particularly hard to sell. He was even planning to take it back if it didn't sell today and not bring it out to sell next time. Unexpectedly, I asked, so he reduced the price by $5. I nodded, okay, then I'll buy this pot. It's $5 cheaper anyway. The man selling orchids immediately grinned from ear to ear. Young man, you have good eyes. This pot of orchids is beautiful. I took out $25 from my pocket and handed it to him. He took the money, confirmed it was all real, then hugged the pot of jadeite orchids and handed it to me. I took the orchid pot, hugged it, and then continued to lead Lily and Beth towards the flower shop. Daddy, do you like orchids? Lily asked as she walked. They're okay, but this pot of orchids is unusual. Dad got a good deal, I said with a smile. Lily was slightly stunned, not quite understanding the meaning of this sentence. Daddy, what does got a good deal mean? Beth also looked at me doubtfully. That's right, Dad. The flowers of this pot are green, while the flowers of the other pots are all red. I think red and purple flowers are prettier. But this orchid pot is $5 cheaper, it really is a good deal. I smirked and said, some people actually prefer orchids that bloom green flowers. Got a good deal means buying something expensive for a small amount of money. As we were talking, suddenly, a car parked right beside us. I glanced at the car, then intended to continue walking. Young man! Wait a moment! Immediately, someone called out. I didn't know if they were calling me, but I still automatically looked into the car and saw an old man sitting inside. The old man told the driver to stop the car, then hurriedly opened the car door and got out. The old man laughed heartily, looking at me with a kind face. I looked at the old man and said, "Old sir, are you looking for me for something?" The old man looked at the orchid pot I was holding in my arms and said, "Young man, I wonder if the orchid pot in your hands is for sale?" The old man's name was Professor Zhao, changed Tru Dong Nguyen to Professor Zhao for simplicity, or a more American-sounding name like Professor Miller or Davis could be used. He was a university professor. This time he came back to St. Louis to visit relatives, and unexpectedly saw someone holding a pot of jadeite orchids on the street. He personally loved orchids very much. He had a very deep research on orchids and went to orchid exhibitions everywhere every year. So, this time when he saw me holding the orchid pot, he immediately recognized it. This was an extremely precious pot of jadeite orchids. I saw that the car he was riding in was a Mercedes, so he must be a wealthy old man. I said, "Old sir, what price are you planning to buy it for?" As soon as Professor Zhao heard I intended to sell this orchid pot, his face immediately flushed red with excitement. This orchid pot, to ordinary people, might just be a pot of flowers. But to someone like him who was infatuated with orchids, this was a treasure. He immediately said, $10,000, how about it? $10,000, at this time, was already a lot of money, equal to more than a year's salary for an ordinary worker. If the man selling orchids just now had heard this price, he would probably have been so happy that he would have immediately agreed to sell. But, I looked at Professor Zhao and chuckled, "Old sir, since you've taken a fancy to this orchid pot, I think you also know what kind of orchid this is. Do you think I would sell it for $10,000? Lily and Beth were extremely surprised when they heard $10,000. This $10,000 must be a lot of money. But then hearing me say I wouldn't sell, the two little girls were even more frightened. Both of them looked up at me, not understanding why I refused. $10,000 was a large sum of money. How many times would they have to sell flowers to save up this $10,000? Hearing me say this, Professor Zhao looked at me very surprised. He didn't expect me to recognize this orchid pot. Knowing he had met someone who knew their stuff, he didn't haggle anymore and offered a price he could accept, smiling, "Young man, not bad, you know this orchid pot well. I'll offer $20,000. I sincerely want to buy it. What do you think? $20,000 is already my psychological price. Any more, I can't afford it." Buying this orchid pot for $20,000, he would be punished by his wife to kneel on the washboard. This idiom might need slight rephrasing for natural American English, e.g., "My wife would have my hide or I'd be in the doghouse for weeks." But for his hobby, he would rather face the consequences than not buy it. I smiled and said, "Okay, there are 3 stalks of jadeite orchids in this pot. You won't lose out buying them for $20,000. $20,000 was indeed the current market price for this pot of jadeite orchids. I bought this orchid pot, originally also to make money. I wanted to make a lot of money, and now I had to accumulate as much initial capital as possible. Professor Zhao laughed heartily, his impression of me even better. After all, this jadeite orchid wasn't easy to find, otherwise it wouldn't be worth so much money. Having the money to buy something one likes, Professor Zhao was extremely happy. He smiled and said to me, "Young man, I'll have to trouble you to come with us for a bit. I don't have that much cash on me right now, we have to go to the bank to withdraw money." Okay, I nodded. Coincidentally, there was a bank nearby. I held the orchid pot in my arms, led Lily and Beth by the hand, and followed Professor Zhao towards the bank. Arriving at the bank, Professor Zhao went to the counter to withdraw money, took out $20,000, handed it to me, and said with a smile, "Young man, count it and see if it's short." I set the orchid pot aside, then took the money Professor Zhao handed me, counted it again, it was indeed $20,000. Then I put the money away and handed the orchid pot to Professor Zhao. Professor Zhao took the jadeite orchid pot, smiled, and asked, "Young man, what's your name?" "Jack Carter," I replied. "All right, Jack Carter, I'll remember it. My name is Professor Zhao. We'll meet again if fate allows," Professor Zhao said, hugging the orchid pot, smiled, and then left. After Professor Zhao left, Lily and Beth couldn't help but run up to me, looked at me in astonishment, and said, "Daddy, the orchid pot you bought for $25 just now, did you really sell it to that old gentleman for $20,000? They didn't expect the orchid pot Dad bought so easily would sell for $20,000? That was $20,000. The two of them had never seen so much money. Daddy was really too capable. The way Lily and Beth looked at me immediately became full of admiration. Being looked at by my two daughters with admiring eyes, I had a strange feeling in my heart. This feeling was very wonderful. Even better than in my past life when I was successful and was looked at by a group of female fans with admiring eyes. I smiled at my two little darlings and said, "This is the lucky find Dad told you about earlier. Spent $25 to buy an orchid pot, sold it for $20,000, and made a profit of $19,975. What does this tell us? It tells us that having a good eye is very important, and knowledge is very important." So, I didn't finish my sentence, intending to test the two little girls. Lily said excitedly at this moment, "So, we have to study hard, broaden our knowledge, so we won't be bought cheap and sold dear by others, but instead, we'll be the ones to find what others have missed." "My daughter is so smart," I said, smiling and patting Lily's head. Seeing her older sister being praised, Beth also didn't want to be outdone and said, "Daddy, lucky finds also have another prerequisite, which is to meet a customer willing to spend money. Only when the item is sold can it truly be a lucky find that earns a profit. Isn't that right?" I treated them equally, dotingly patting Beth's head, and praised with a smile, "Yes, our Beth is so smart. Hee, Daddy, we were so lucky today. We just bought an orchid, and in a flash, we met a customer," Beth said. I smiled and said, "That's because you two sisters brought Dad good luck." Lily tugged at the leash in her hand and said to me, "Daddy, is it because we named the puppy Lucky that it brought us prosperous fortune?" I smiled and said, "It's possible." I was in a very good mood. Earning $20,000, plus the $7,000 I had on hand, I now had $27,000. I could do something big now. The two little girls immediately became even happier. On the way to the flower shop, they kept calling Lucky's name, "Lucky, Lucky, Lucky." Hoping it would bring Dad good fortune, hoping Dad would earn a lot of money. After arriving at the flower shop and wrapping the flowers intended for sale today, I led Beth and Lily to the pedestrian street to sell flowers. This time, because Lucky was wearing new clothes, plus the two little girls were so adorable, it attracted many older sisters to gather around and watch, so the flowers were all sold out in just 3 hours. After selling the flowers, I led the two little girls to count the money. Today, we earned $500. It was the most in the past few days of selling flowers. "Wow! So much money!" Beth exclaimed. Lily also nodded repeatedly. I smiled at the two little girls, their foreheads both beaded with sweat. But I didn't feel tired at all. On the contrary, I felt this simple life was extremely happy. "Let's go. Dad will buy you ice cream." I led the two little girls by the hand towards a nearby ice cream stall. The stall owner was sitting on a chair, cracking melon seeds. I walked over and said, "Boss, give me 3 green bean ice pops." "All right. 60 cents, the owner replied. I paid 60 cents, then took the 3 ice pops, handed one each to Beth and Lily, and then took one for myself to eat. Lily and Beth ate their ice cream, sweet smiles on their faces. I ate my ice cream while observing the surroundings. Suddenly, I saw an internet cafe, and my eyes immediately lit up. An idea popped into my head. After finishing the ice cream, I smiled at Lily and Beth and said, "Let's go, Dad will take you to the internet cafe to play." Internet cafe? Both of them looked at me doubtfully. What was an internet cafe? This was something they had never encountered before. I smiled, "Let's go." "Oh." The two little girls replied. They immediately followed me into the internet cafe. Lily and Beth entered the cafe, curiously looking around. In 1999, the conditions in internet cafes were extremely basic. Because computers were very expensive, easily costing over $10,000 each, the cost of opening an internet cafe was very high. So, this internet cafe only had a total of 5 computers. The monitors were bulky, and the chairs in the cafe were all wooden. The internet cafe also didn't have air conditioning. Sitting here surfing the net in the hot summer would make you melt. But even in this environment, it couldn't stop people's love for the internet and games. As soon as you entered the door, you could hear the particularly loud clicking of keyboards. And the shouts of the boys. Quick, kill him, kill him. Stun him. Although there were only 4 people playing, the atmosphere in the internet cafe was still very lively. I smirked. This was indeed the atmosphere of this era. Walking to the counter, I said to the young man managing the internet cafe, "Excuse me, could you set up a computer for me? How much is it per hour?" "It's $5 an hour here." "Do you want to use one?" the manager asked, looking at me. I nodded. "All right, you're lucky. A customer just left, so there's one machine free. Otherwise, you would have had to wait a while," the manager said, then wrote down the time I started using the machine in a notebook. I watched the manager write in the notebook, thinking to myself that this era still didn't have an internet cafe management system. This was an extremely rare opportunity. If grasped well, I could definitely make a fortune. The corners of my mouth curled up slightly. Very quickly, the manager set up a computer for me. I nodded and then led the 2 little girls to sit down. "Daddy, what are we doing?" Beth asked me curiously. "Playing games," I replied with a smile. "Playing games? Then what game are we playing?" I didn't answer Beth, just looked at the computer and found that Command and Conquer, CS, and a few other popular games at the time were already installed. I looked around, then opened the CS game, which was a shooting game. I immediately joined the first round. Lily and Beth, one sitting on my left and one on my right, leaned close to watch me play. As soon as I entered the game, I immediately found a position and started playing CS. While playing, I observed the movements of the character in the game and also monitored the movement directions of other characters. Wow! So cool! This character is so awesome! Seeing my character's performance, Lily exclaimed in amazement. Daddy's skills are so good. I saw Dad kill 7 or 8 enemies in a row. Beth also nodded repeatedly. Seeing the admiring expressions on the 2 little girls' faces, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of pride, welled up in my heart. Come. Beth, Lily, come here, Dad will teach you how to play games," I said with a smile, calling the 2 little girls over. Yes. Lily and Beth quickly nodded. After watching me play just now, the 2 of them were already fascinated by this game. Come here. Dad will teach you how to play." I began to guide the 2 of them on how to play. Yes. The 2 little girls nodded repeatedly. I first taught the 2 of them the rules of shooting games, and then I started teaching them how to use guns in the game. "Daddy, how is your shooting skill so good?" Lily asked curiously. "Dad's shooting skill comes from practice," I replied with a smile. "Come on, Beth, Lily, let's continue playing." I remembered I was a CS master back in the day. This game was a piece of cake for me. Yes. The 2 little girls quickly nodded. "Come on, Beth, aim at the enemy." "Okay." Beth nodded. "Aim. Fire." Bang. The crisp sound of gunfire rang out. I stood by and watched, my heart burning with excitement. It felt so exhilarating. While I was engrossed in playing, the group of boys in the internet cafe also glanced at my operations. The 2 sitting next to me even stood up and stood behind me to watch. The whole group was astonished. The 2 players sitting opposite also ran over to watch. 4 people stood behind me, watching intently. They really didn't expect to meet such a skilled gamer in an internet cafe. It was truly awesome, so handsome, such operations, it really made them gasp in admiration. I taught the 2 little girls to play a few rounds and then let them play by themselves. I stood by, watching the 2 of them play, while also observing the situation in the internet cafe. Although the internet rates were expensive now, $5 an hour, this internet cafe's business was extremely prosperous, with a constant stream of gamers. Even if there were no free machines, they would stand next to the person playing, waiting for that person's time to be up before taking the spot. They even queued up in long lines waiting for their turn. there were also quite a few people standing behind me watching. In this era, opening an internet cafe was truly a money-making industry. However, the capital I had on hand at this time was limited, only $27,000. Buying computers, I could only buy 3 at most at a time. But even if there were few machines initially, it was still much better than depositing money in the bank for interest, much more profitable. Moreover, 3 computers, $5 an hour, from 8 in the morning to 12 at night, calculated at $5 an hour, one machine could earn $80. Furthermore, from 12 at night to 8 in the morning, those 8 hours could be calculated at an all-night package price, $2.50 an hour, earning $20. So, one machine could earn $100 a day. 3 machines, that's $300. The more machines, the more money earned. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but smile. No wonder in my past life, someone in 2006 even opened 2,000 internet cafes nationwide at once. But they entered the game late back then and eventually had to close all 2,000 cafes. But now it was 1999. Jumping into the internet cafe business at this time was absolutely a golden opportunity. The internet cafe industry was in a booming phase like an oil gusher. There's a very good saying, standing in the wind, even a pig can fly. Opening an internet cafe now was the same. No advanced technology was needed, just money to open one. But the initial investment was also very large, so many people with money in hand were still hesitant, observing. Observing for a long time like this, it was easy to miss the opportunity. But for me, someone with reborn memories, there was absolutely no need to be hesitant. Just open it. Thinking of this, a smile couldn't help but appear at the corners of my mouth. Selling eels and tea seed cakes to accumulate initial capital, opening an internet cafe to make money generate more money. Not bad. Very quickly, 2 hours passed. I looked at my watch and then led the 2 little girls to pay. The manager glanced at the time we started using the machine and said, 2 hours, total $10. I nodded, then took out $10 from my pocket and handed it to the manager, then led the 2 little girls out of the internet cafe. As soon as we left the cafe, Lily looked at me and said, "Daddy, this internet cafe is really expensive. Let's not play anymore in the future." "It is a bit expensive, but being expensive is very good," I said with a smile. Expensive internet rates meant that if I opened an internet cafe, I could also earn more money. The 2 little girls looked at me with blank expressions, not quite understanding my meaning. I dotingly patted their heads. "How about Dad opens an internet cafe like this too?" "Huh?" The 2 little girls' eyes widened in surprise. "Daddy, what exactly is an internet cafe?" Although the 2 little girls had entered the internet cafe with me and played games, they still didn't quite understand what an internet cafe was. I smiled and explained to the 2 of them, "The place we were just playing in is called an internet cafe. The machine we were playing on is called a computer. That internet cafe just now had 5 machines, so it can be called an internet cafe." Oh, but why is it called an internet cafe? 4-year-old children are very curious about the world and love to ask why. I didn't show any impatience. On the contrary, I patiently explained, "Look, the computer we were just playing on, could it connect to the internet, and then everyone could play a game together?" "Yes," the 2 little girls nodded seriously. I continued, "So, there's a net here, and cafe means a place where a group of us gather to go online. So, putting them together, it's an internet cafe." I patiently explained the origin of the term internet cafe to the 2 little girls. The 2 little girls finally understood. Then, Lily's eyes lit up. "Daddy, I saw many people in the internet cafe just now, and moreover, there were many people standing in line waiting for machines. We just left our machine, and the 2 people behind us fought over it, almost starting a fight. If Dad opens an internet cafe, it will definitely be very crowded." These past few days following me to sell flowers, she knew that only with many customers could one earn more money. If there weren't many customers, the things on hand might not even sell, would become unsaleable, and then no money would be earned. Beth also didn't want to be outdone. "Daddy, I also found out they were all playing games. If we prepare more games on the computers, the cafe will definitely be very crowded." Hearing the 2 little girls' words, I smiled, not stingy with my praise. Our Lily and Beth are so smart. No wonder they were my daughters. Truly smart. They could already think of so many things so quickly, their business thinking was beginning to form. Such useful knowledge couldn't be learned in school. Taking the children out into society to experience things, their minds would quickly be enlightened. Moreover, children are young, which is the best time to absorb new things, they learn very quickly. Along the way, the two little girls showed great anticipation for my plan to open an internet cafe. After I led the two little girls to deliver the cart to the flower shop, it was already getting late, so I led my two darlings home to cook dinner for them. After dinner, I took the two little girls out for a walk. While walking, I happened to run into Tom Scott, changed Tong Triet to Tom Scott, my high school classmate. In my past life, Tom was my best buddy in high school. In college, we still kept in touch frequently. But later, when my family went bankrupt, I cut off contact with everyone, including Tom. Tom was also extremely surprised and happy to see me. He looked at me and asked, "Jack Carter, where have you been for so long? Why did you disappear without a word back then? I couldn't get in touch with you." "Something happened at home," I said, smiling and explaining to Tom. After Tom heard this, he didn't ask much more. Then he saw Lily and Beth standing next to me. Seeing the two little girls, Tom's face showed an expression of astonishment. He looked at me and asked, "Jack, who are these two adorable little girls?" I looked at Tom with a smile and said, "These are my daughters. Lily, Beth, call him Uncle." "Hello, Uncle," Lily called out sweetly. Beth didn't call out, just looked at Tom with wide eyes. Tom didn't mind because at this moment, he was stunned by my words. He didn't expect me to have two such adorable daughters. They looked to be about 4 years old. In other words, 5 years ago, I already had children? No wonder I cut off contact with them. It must be because I had children, the pressure multiplied, and I was busy taking care of my wife and children every day. So, I didn't have time to contact them. Looking at the two adorable little girls, Tom thought about how his family was urging him to get married, and he admired me even more. "Congratulations! Jack, are these twins?" "Amazing," Tom said, looking at me and giving a thumbs up. Hearing Tom, Lily looked at him and replied, "Uncle, we're triplets. Our younger sister is on a business trip with Mom." Hearing this, Tom's eyes widened a bit more, and then he looked at Lily in astonishment. "Triplets?" "Yes," Lily nodded, a sweet smile on her face. Tom looked at me with an astonished expression. "Jack, really amazing. Triplets. Oh my God, this is absolutely the first time I've heard of this." I was already amazed when I heard about people having twins before. "I didn't expect you to have triplets. Amazing, I admire you. Your machine is really powerful." After hearing Tom, I burst out laughing, then patted his shoulder and said to Lily and Beth, "Lily, Beth, you two go play on the slide over there, but don't go out of Dad's sight, okay?" Meeting an old classmate, and happening to be walking with my children, talking to an old friend was all about adult matters, which children wouldn't find interesting. So, I told the two little girls to go play on the slide first. As long as they were within my sight, there wouldn't be any problems. Beth had also seen the slide long ago. At this moment, there were quite a few children playing there, and she also really wanted to go play. After hearing me, she immediately nodded, "Okay, Daddy." Lily also nodded. After all, the two little girls were children and still liked to play children's games. In a moment, the two little girls ran over and played on the slide. After the two little girls left, Tom looked at me with an admiring expression. "Jack, I really admire you. Having 3 such beautiful daughters at once." I confirmed that the two little girls were within my sight, then looked at Tom with a smile and said, "Admire me? You can have one too, haha." Hearing this, Tom immediately said with a distressed expression, "I haven't even seen a trace of my child's mother yet, how can I have one?" When it came to matters of love, both men and women liked to gossip. I asked, "You've graduated for 2 years already, still no girlfriend?" As soon as Tom heard this, his face immediately showed a pained expression. "Don't even mention it. I don't have time to find a girlfriend. I'm working at a bank now, and my tasks are so heavy every day, I'm about to die." I took out a pack of cigarettes from my pocket, took out 2, and handed one to Tom. The two of us smoked while chatting idly. "Isn't working at a bank very comfortable? Why are you so busy?" I asked, taking a drag of my cigarette.
Tom explained, I'm in charge of the bank's lending department now. Every month, there's a hard target for the loan amount.
They make us lend out $200,000 every month.
If we can't do it, we don't get a commission that month.
As soon as I heard this, my heart skipped a beat. I was currently preparing to open an internet cafe, but I only had $27,000 on hand, which could only buy 3 computers.
Currently. I smiled at Tom and said, Old Tom, what are the conditions for loans at your place? You want to borrow money? Tom asked tentatively.
I smiled and nodded. I do want to borrow some, but I don't know how the interest is calculated, nor do I know how much I can borrow. I had no house, no car in St. Louis, no stable job, and my household registration wasn't here either.
To a bank, they wouldn't lend a single penny to someone like me.
So, I hadn't thought about going to a bank to borrow money initially.
But wasn't I needing an old classmate now?
At this time, America was still a society that valued personal connections. Many unsolvable problems could be solved if you had connections.
Old Tom, I'm only telling you this because you're my good friend. Although I work in lending, I don't advise you to borrow money. Borrowing money isn't a good thing.
If you can't pay it back, the bank will collect the debt, and your whole family will know by then, Tom said seriously, looking at me. At this time, for ordinary people, borrowing money wasn't something to show off, but rather something to hide. But in later generations, when real estate was hot, more and more people used leverage to borrow money, speculating on real estate to make money. Being able to borrow money from a bank, on the contrary, became a kind of capital to show off.
Many people even fretted day and night because they didn't qualify to borrow money from a bank and couldn't borrow money to buy a house.
It was the same for companies. At year-end gatherings, people wouldn't talk about how much money you saved, but how much money you borrowed from the bank. If you borrowed less, you might even be asked by a group of people why you only borrowed so little. Then they would teach the other party how to borrow more money from the bank. For me, someone with experience from a later life, in these early years, being able to borrow money from a bank was absolutely a godsend opportunity.
Initial capital, I had it. I knew Tom meant well.
I smiled at Tom and said, I know you're good to me, but, as you can see, I have a wife and children to support. I want to do some business to make money, and I really need initial capital.
What kind of business do you want to do? Tom asked. Open an internet cafe, I said.
I'm not hiding anything about this because when I fill out the loan application, I have to clearly state the purpose of the loan.
You're planning to open an internet cafe?
Tom Scott looked at me, slightly surprised.
Yeah, I nodded.
Tom took a few drags of his cigarette, then said to me, I know about internet cafes. They're pretty cool, and the internet fees are expensive, but the initial investment is too large.
One computer costs over $10,000.
Besides, it looks like a lot of people go to internet cafes now, but what if it's not popular anymore after a while?
Then you wouldn't even be able to recoup your initial investment. Jack, why don't you reconsider and try a different business?
I smiled and patted Tom's shoulder. Buddy, I know you're concerned about me, but I've made up my mind.
Right now, I don't meet the loan requirements. Is there any way you can help me out?
Seeing I was determined, Tom silently took a few more drags of his cigarette. Only after finishing the cigarette did he look at me seriously. All right, if you want to start a business, as a brother, I'll definitely support you. Although you don't meet the loan requirements, I can help you solve it.
However, you can't borrow much.
Under $100,000 is within my authority. I can decide myself without needing the general manager's approval. It's difficult to borrow more than $100,000.
The approval process will be very strict then, and it'll be hard to get a loan. I nodded. Okay, then lend me $100,000. Tom looked at me, stunned. $100,000? He thought I only wanted to borrow $20,000 or $30,000. He didn't expect me to want to borrow as much as $100,000. I said, don't worry, I can definitely pay it back. I won't put you in a difficult position. The reason I said this was because this loan was approved by Tom. If there were any problems, he would be held responsible. But I had absolute confidence that I could repay this $100,000 debt. Tom was a little unhappy. Jack, saying that means you don't consider me a friend.
I'm not worried that you borrowing $100,000 and not being able to repay it will make things difficult for me.
I'm worried about you. If you borrow $100,000 and lose it, what then? I smiled. You can rest assured on this point. I definitely won't lose money.
Tom nodded, thought for a moment, and then said, "All right, if you want to borrow $100,000, I'll arrange it for you. You have to be careful. This kind of business, it looks like it can make money, but when you do it yourself, 8 or 9 times out of 10, you'll lose money and just consider it tuition fees."
Yeah, thank you for your concern, I said sincerely.
Tom said, "Come to the Yangtze River Bank, Coconut Grove Road branch tomorrow. I work there. I'll help you apply for an annual interest rate of 3%. Changed bank and street names for American context, e.g., First National Bank, Oak Street branch."
Okay, thanks, buddy. Don't be polite with me.
By the way, your Lily and Beth are really cute and pretty.
Who's their mom?
She must be a campus beauty, a real stunner, right?
Tom asked curiously.
Mentioning their mother, I looked at Lily and Beth playing on the slide, my gaze gradually softening, a slight smile appearing at the corners of my mouth. Yeah, their mom is very beautiful. She was the campus beauty of the National University of Economics and Finance next door when I was in college in Beijing.
Her name is Sarah Williams.
Adjusted university name for American context, e.g., the campus beauty of the University of Economics next door when I was in college in New York. Tom seemed to realize something and lightly punched my arm. "Hey, you got married and didn't even tell me. I had your wedding gift ready, been waiting for a long time."
I smiled. It's a long story.
Even though it had been 28 years since I last saw Tom, my high school best friend, when we met and talked about borrowing money, every word he said was for my sake. Moreover, in this era, especially with my circumstances, borrowing $100,000, if I couldn't repay it, Tom, as the loan approver, would bear a huge responsibility.
Tom was truly a good brother to me.
So, I told Tom the story of me and Sarah. After hearing it, Tom was endlessly surprised. "Now that you're back, you have to treat her really well. She gave birth to triplets for you and has remained single until now.
She must be waiting for you. You can't let her down."
Having children out of wedlock, raising children alone without being married, she must have endured a lot of judgmental looks.
I nodded seriously. Yeah, now that I know about this, I absolutely won't let Sarah down. I'm going to marry her. Tom smiled. "All right, then I'll wait for your good news. When you get married, whether you have a wedding or not, you have to call me. I've always had your wedding gift ready."
Okay, I smiled and nodded. The two of us chatted about a few other things. 7 o'clock in the evening, Lynn called Sarah again, but was told Sarah still hadn't returned. Finally, Lynn gave the receptionist the neighbor's phone number and asked her to tell Sarah to call her back when she returned. After hanging up, Lynn returned to her building and then knocked on the neighbor's door. Very quickly, Lynn saw a woman of about 40 open the door.
Seeing Lynn, the woman quickly invited her in.
Lynn stood at the door, smiled, and waved her hand. "Auntie Chow, or an American equivalent like Mrs. Davis, I won't come in. My Sarah still hasn't returned to her hotel where she's on business, so I just left your home phone number.
She might call me back later when she returns. Could you please let me know then?"
Mrs. Davis also knew Sarah, knew she was raising 3 children alone, and it was very hard.
"Okay, I know.
Don't worry, I'll definitely let you know," Mrs. Davis said, nodding and smiling at Lynn.
"Then I'll trouble you."
"Thank you, Mrs. Davis," Lynn said, looking at Mrs. Davis with a sincere expression. Hearing Lynn, Mrs. Davis smiled and replied, it's nothing, just a small matter. If you need any help, just ask. We're neighbors, after all." Lynn nodded at that, then turned and went into her apartment.
As for me,
time flew by, and it was suddenly 7 in the evening. I had agreed with Lynn to bring the children to her place before 8. So, I said goodbye to Tom, set a time to meet tomorrow, and then led Lily and Beth towards Lynn's apartment complex. When I brought the 2 little girls to Lynn's house, it still wasn't 8 o'clock. Lynn saw me bring the 2 little girls back on time, and she was very satisfied with my punctuality. After bringing the children home, I looked at Lily and Beth and said with a smile, "Lily, Beth, Dad is leaving now." Lily looked at me with a smile, "Daddy, be careful on your way."
Daddy, will you come find us again tomorrow?
Beth also stood by, asking in a childish voice. Hearing this, I dotingly patted Beth's and Lily's heads and said with a smile, of course, tomorrow Dad will come pick up my two little princesses to go out and play. Lily and Beth both jumped up happily at that.
Okay, Daddy, come early tomorrow morning.
We'll wait for you, Lily said happily. Alright, Dad is leaving now, I said, smiling and waving at the two little girls. Beth and Lily walked me to the door, then smiled and said to me, Daddy, remember to come early tomorrow.
Okay. I said, smiling and waving at my two children, then went downstairs.
The two little girls watched my departing figure, then reluctantly turned and went inside. Lynn sat in the living room, watching the two little girls with that reluctant expression, and couldn't help but tease with a smile, oh my two little ancestors, your faces are about to touch the ground. Lily and Beth tilted their heads to look at Lynn and said in unison, we don't. Looking at the two little girls like this, Lynn smiled and shook her head.
These two, really? Lynn didn't dwell on this issue anymore.
She looked at the two little girls and said, come here, Auntie Lynn wants to ask you something.
Hearing this, Lily and Beth immediately went over to Lynn obediently. Auntie Lynn, what do you want to ask? Lily looked up, smiling at Lynn. Lynn patted Lily's head, looking at her gently, what did you and your dad do today?
Dad took us to sell flowers and earn money, Auntie.
We earned 500, Lily said, smiling at Lynn. 500?
Lynn asked Lily, looking at her with some surprise. Lynn was truly very surprised. She didn't expect me to take the two little girls to sell flowers and earn money, and to earn as much as $500.
That was a lot of money earned today. Equal to a normal person's entire month's salary. Lily nodded, that's right, Auntie Lynn. Let me tell you, Dad is super capable.
It was Dad who helped us sell flowers, that's why we earned so much money.
Lynn nodded, then what happened after that? Where else did you go?
Dad bought us ice pops, and we also went to the internet cafe to play games, Lily reported obediently, looking at Lynn. As soon as Beth mentioned games, she immediately became excited, Auntie Lynn, let me tell you, my dad is super amazing at playing games.
Lynn's eyebrows furrowed slightly when she heard I took the two little girls to an internet cafe. Internet cafes were full of people who liked to play games.
If the two little girls went, problems could easily arise, but she didn't say much. Beside her, Beth was still immersed in the joy of playing games, but Lily had already noticed Lynn's expression. Afraid Lynn would have a bad impression of her dad, she quickly changed the subject, that's right, Auntie Lynn, Dad got a lucky find today. He bought a pot of orchids and sold it for about $19,975.
$19,975? Lynn asked Lily, looking at her in utter astonishment. She hadn't misheard, had she? Bought a pot of orchids and immediately sold it for nearly $20,000? Beth looked at Lynn and nodded, yes. Dad was very lucky today. Lily continued, that's right, Auntie.
Today, Dad spent $25 on the street to buy a pot of orchids, but then an old gentleman spent $20,000 to buy Dad's orchid pot. I heard Dad tell that old gentleman that the orchid pot seemed to be called a jadeite orchid.
What?
Hearing these words, Lynn was momentarily stunned. She really didn't expect such a thing to happen. I could casually pick up a jadeite orchid worth $20,000. Although she wasn't familiar with orchids, she also knew that there were indeed some rare orchids that could be sold at high prices. A pot of orchids sold for $20,000. Most importantly, I only spent $25 to buy it. That meant a profit of nearly $20,000. $20,000 was not a small sum, this amount could be equivalent to her 2 years' salary. She didn't expect me to be able to earn $20,000 so easily. Although Lily said this was due to my luck, as an adult, she didn't think this was purely luck. Because this matter didn't just rely on luck, but also required a good eye and strength. Like the person selling orchids, they also didn't know that their orchid pot was a rare variety that could be sold for $20,000. Otherwise, that person would have sold it themselves long ago. How could they let me get this bargain? It could only be said that I really had a good eye. I recognized it was a jadeite orchid. It seemed that what I said before, about wanting to earn $100,000 within a month, was really very possible. But, as for my claim of earning over $100,000 in 3 months, she still felt it was impossible, too absurd.
Lily saw Lynn's astonished expression, immediately reached out and pulled Lynn's hand, asking with a crinkle-eye smile, Auntie Lynn, do you think my dad's luck is extremely good?
Hearing this, Lynn smiled and pinched the two little girls' cheeks. It must be you two who brought your dad good luck, for him to sell a pot of orchids for $20,000. Although she knew it was because I was capable, she still didn't want to admit it out loud and still wanted to give credit to Lily and Beth. Because with strength, plus luck, one could encounter such good things. Hearing Lynn say this, Lily and Beth both shook their heads simultaneously. Auntie Lynn, don't praise us.
It's Dad who is amazing.
If Dad hadn't recognized that orchid pot was very expensive, Dad wouldn't have gotten such a good deal.
It's very likely that old gentleman would have gotten it. In my past life, this jadeite orchid pot was indeed obtained by Professor Zhao.
But today, encountering the reborn Jack Carter, I recognized this jadeite orchid pot, so the one who got the bargain was me. Seeing this, Lynn smiled and nodded. All right, I won't praise you two little rascals anymore. I see that in your hearts, there's only your dad. Hearing this, Lily and Beth immediately hugged one of Lynn's legs each and acted coquettishly. We like Auntie Lynn the most. Being hugged by the two little girls acting coquettishly, the smile on Lynn's face became even more radiant. She looked at the two little girls and asked with a smile, all right, quickly go to your room, wash up, and go to bed.
Don't you have to go out and play with your dad tomorrow?
Yes, the two little girls quickly nodded, immediately let go of Lynn's hand, and stood up. Seeing this, Lynn also stood up, patted the two little girls' heads with a smile, and said, go on, hurry up and wash up and go to bed.
Good night, Auntie Lynn.
Good night. Lily and Beth skipped off to wash up. They were really very happy today. At 11 o'clock at night, Lynn's door was knocked. She immediately went to open it. It was Mrs. Davis, the neighbor across the hall.
Mrs. Davis looked at Lynn with a smile and said, Little Lynn, you're still up?
Yes, I'm still waiting for a call.
Is it Sarah calling?
Lynn asked, looking at Mrs. Davis.
Mrs. Davis smiled and nodded, that's right. Sarah called just now. Hurry over and take the call.
As soon as Lynn heard this, she immediately looked at Mrs. Davis, smiled and nodded, then went into Mrs. Davis's apartment with her. Lynn walked over to the phone, picked up the receiver, and only heard a burst of noisy music from the other end.
Lynn said, Hello, Sarah, are you still there? Sarah's voice immediately came from the other end of the line. Lynn, why did you call me today? Did something happen to Lily or Beth?
No, your two little rascals are fine, Lynn said with a smile.
It's good that nothing happened, Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. Then what is it?
There's something important.
Prepare yourself mentally first, Lynn's voice became serious.
Go ahead and tell me, Sarah said. It's about Jack Carter, Lynn said in a low voice. Hearing the name Jack Carter, Sarah paused for a moment, then a faint, bitter smile appeared on her face.
She mmm'd in acknowledgement.
Lynn tried to control her tone, saying in a low voice, a few days ago, when I called you, didn't I talk about Jack Carter with you? Actually, that day, I had already met Jack Carter.
Hearing this, Sarah was silent for a moment.
Lynn didn't hear any sound from the other end of the line, but she heard breathing, knowing Sarah was still listening.
She continued, Sarah, are you okay?
I'm fine, go on, Sarah's voice deepened.
It even trembled slightly. Did he see Lily and Beth?
Lynn answered honestly, yes, the day before yesterday, it was Lily who led him to find me. When I saw him then, I was also startled.
He came to find me to ask who Lily and her sister's biological father was.
I didn't tell him. At that time, I was also afraid he knew something and had come back to snatch the children.
Then what?
Sarah bit her fingertip, trying to suppress her emotions, and asked calmly. A few days ago, I still kept Lily and Beth by my side every day, afraid Jack Carter would take them away. A few days later, I didn't see Jack Carter anymore. Plus, the day before yesterday, I was too busy and couldn't look after Lily and Beth, so I left them at home. Who knew Jack Carter still hadn't left? He took advantage of my absence from home and took the two little rascals for a DNA test. Now he has acknowledged Lily and Beth, Lynn recounted honestly.
Acknowledged them? Sarah asked.
Lynn nodded. Yes, the two little rascals seem to like Jack Carter very much. After hearing these words, Sarah was silent for a long time before opening her mouth. If Lily and Beth like him, that's good. After all, they also have the right to know who their biological father is. At that time, she told her children that their father had passed away because she had searched for all of Jack Carter's friends and classmates she knew, but no one could contact him. She thought Jack Carter had died in an accident. Although she didn't believe it in her heart, when her children turned one and started asking about their father, she could only tell them this cruel truth. Telling them their father had passed away, so Lily, Beth, and little Fragrance would no longer hold on to unrealistic hopes about their father. Hearing Sarah's tone, Lynn couldn't help but sigh. Sarah, Jack Carter broke up with you back then for a reason. Sarah didn't speak, her teeth lightly biting her red lips, biting until they almost bled. Her hand holding the phone tightened. At that moment, her ears became extremely sharp. She didn't want to miss any word related to Jack Carter. Lynn continued, back then, Jack Carter's family went bankrupt and incurred a huge debt of over $100,000.
He didn't want to implicate you, nor did he know you had children.
He dropped out of school and left New York, cutting off contact with everyone. For these 5 years, he has been working in Chicago to earn money to pay off the debt. He just returned this year, Lynn recounted slowly.
Hearing this, Sarah's tears fell silently.
Her heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. She knew Jack Carter was a very good man, and also a responsible person. Back then, she had thought of many reasons why Jack Carter broke up with her, even guessing if Jack Carter wanted to break up because she was pregnant. She didn't expect Jack Carter to break up with her, even disappear, because his family had encountered a major incident, and he didn't want to implicate her, so he chose to break up and then went out alone to work and pay off debts. Thinking of this, her heart was filled with pain for Jack Carter.
A long time later, Sarah took a deep breath. Lynn, thank you for telling me the truth from back then. Sarah, are you okay? Lynn asked with concern. I'm fine.
By the way, Sarah, Jack Carter has been single for these 5 years, has no girlfriend, let alone any other prospects, Lynn said, stating the important point. Hearing this, a hint of pleasant surprise flashed in Sarah's beautiful eyes and then disappeared.
She wiped her tears and said, okay, I know. Thank you, Lynn. Between us, why be so polite? But now that Jack Carter is back, are you planning to get back together with him? Lynn asked.
After Lynn finished speaking, the other end of the line fell silent. A long time later, the other end of the line was still quiet.
Lynn called out a little anxiously, Sarah? Sarah? I'm here. Sarah said. Sarah, Jack Carter told me.
Lynn recounted every word of the promises Jack Carter had made to her when he held the DNA test report, the promises to Sarah and the children, without missing a single word. Finally, she said, Sarah, think about it carefully.
I can't say much about this matter either. As a friend, she naturally hoped Sarah would be happy.
Moreover, Sarah had been staying in St. Louis with her children for these past few years. She knew Sarah had always been waiting for Jack Carter. Today, Jack Carter had returned.
Jack Carter and Sarah, one unmarried man, one unmarried woman.
However, when it came to matters of love, she couldn't say too much. Telling Sarah what happened here, to give Sarah time to think carefully.
In recent years, Sarah had suffered too much. A few promises from Jack Carter couldn't erase everything. After finishing talking about Jack Carter, she asked Sarah when she would be back. My business here isn't resolved yet. It might take another half a month before I can come back, Sarah said.
Lynn nodded and then continued, by the way, Sarah, Jack Carter asked me for your hotel phone number today.
Should I give it to him?
Hearing Lynn say this, Sarah was slightly stunned, then she said, give it to him.
Okay. Sarah, let me tell you something fun.
Lately, Jack Carter has been taking Lily and Beth to earn money, Lynn said with a smile.
Earn money? Sarah asked doubtfully. What kind of money?
I heard the children say they're selling flowers. They've earned over $1,000 in these 3 or 4 days. Today, they earned $500. All the money earned was given to Lily and Beth, Lynn said with a smile. Sarah was momentarily shocked beyond words. She never expected Jack Carter to actually sell flowers. Moreover, he even led Lily and Beth to earn so much money. This amount was almost equal to her 2 months' salary. It seemed Jack Carter must have suffered a lot these past few years. Thinking of this, her eyes also softened a bit, and a kind of heartache arose in her heart. From Lynn's words, she knew Jack Carter treated the two little girls very well, otherwise, the two of them wouldn't get along so happily with Jack Carter. Thinking of this, a slight smile also appeared on Sarah's face. She also looked forward to the scene of meeting Jack Carter again. Sarah smiled and said, "You've worked hard these past few days, Lynn." Lynn chuckled, "Sarah, you're being too polite. What's there to work hard about between us two? Alright, it's getting late. You should rest early too. I won't talk to you anymore." Okay. Sarah nodded. The two hung up the phone. Sarah let out a long sigh of relief. She really didn't expect Jack Carter to return to St. Louis this time, and moreover, to find his daughters. Even less did she expect the truth from back then to be like that. Thinking of these things, she couldn't help but sigh. Her heart was also filled with worry. Could she and Jack Carter be together? Then, Sarah remembered little Fragrance, Hong Ni, the third sister, in the room, didn't stay outside any longer, and returned to her room. When she was pregnant with triplets, due to insufficient nutrition, plus the fact that triplets would compete for nutrition in the mother's womb, she had a premature birth. Little Fragrance only weighed 4.4 pounds, 2,000 grams, when she was born, tiny, and even had to stay in an incubator after birth. Compared to her two older sisters, she was much smaller. After leaving the incubator, her health was also not as good as her two sisters. She didn't drink much milk, and occasionally had high fevers as an infant, very weak. Even now at 4 years old, she was still smaller than her two sisters, looking like a 3-year-old child. Every time, it made her very heartbroken and guilty. Little Fragrance was also the most clingy to her mother among the 3 daughters. Fortunately, her two older sisters both took good care of their younger sister, were sensible, and didn't compete for their mother's love with their younger sister, which made her life as a mother much easier. "Mommy!" Seeing Sarah return, Little Fragrance immediately rushed into her arms. Sarah hugged Little Fragrance, gently pinched her cheek, and said softly, "Little Fragrance, why are you awake?" "I couldn't sleep," Little Fragrance said coquettishly. Sarah hugged Little Fragrance, gently stroking her head. "Little Fragrance, do you want to know about Daddy?" Little Fragrance thought for a moment, then shook her head, "Having Mommy is enough for me." "Silly girl." Sarah gently pinched Little Fragrance's nose and said with a smile, "Let Mommy tell you, Daddy is a very good person. Actually, these past few years." Sarah recounted the story of Jack Carter acknowledging Lily and Beth and the reason Jack Carter left her back then to Little Fragrance. After hearing it, Little Fragrance exclaimed in surprise, "So Daddy is still alive?" But Daddy hasn't had it easy these past few years either. Although Little Fragrance was surprised in her heart that her father was still alive and about the events of the past few days, she didn't particularly look forward to meeting her father. Having her mother was enough. Could Dad be as good as Mom? After all, she had never experienced it, so she didn't expect it. Sarah looked at her youngest daughter and asked gently, "Little Fragrance, don't you want to meet Daddy?" "I do, but even if I want to, I prefer being with Mommy more." Little Fragrance snuggled into Sarah's embrace, sniffed her mother's scent, and said softly. Hearing Little Fragrance say this, Sarah's eyes instantly reddened. Sarah reached out with both hands and hugged Little Fragrance tightly, saying, "You really are Mommy's little comforter." Hearing her mother say this, Little Fragrance also giggled. The mother and daughter talked for a long time. Little Fragrance fell asleep soundly in Sarah's arms. Sarah also gently patted Little Fragrance for a while to help her sleep better. After Sarah coaxed Little Fragrance to sleep, she lay on the bed but couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind constantly recalling the time she spent with Jack Carter before. Her longing for Jack Carter grew deeper, and a slight smile couldn't help but appear at the corners of her mouth. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. The next morning, I drove to the countryside to sell tea seed oil cake and buy eels. Then I brought the eels to sell to the eel noodle shop before going to the bank to find Tom. Seeing me, Tom smiled and said, "You're here so early. Have you had breakfast?" "Eaten," I nodded. Tom smiled and nodded, then led me into a large office and sat down. Tom took out a craft paper file bag from under the table, placed it in front of me, and then said with a smile, "Fill out this basic information first." I nodded, took it, opened it, and looked. It was to fill in some information about the purpose of the loan and the loan amount. Then, I picked up a pen and began to fill in the basic information. After writing, I handed the documents to Tom and said with a smile, "Old Tom, thanks for your trouble." "Don't be polite, we're brothers." Tom waved his hand with a smile, then he also picked up a pen and wrote something on the documents. After filling it out, Tom looked at me with a smile, "Wait here for a moment. I'll be right back." I also nodded, indicating I understood. Tom left and returned not long after. He handed a stack of documents to me and said with a crinkle-eye smile, "All right, the loan is approved." I nodded and then looked at Tom. "Old Tom, can you make me a bank card from your bank? I'll deposit the money into this card later." Tom nodded, "Okay, no problem." Then, Tom asked a colleague to make a bank card for me. I deposited the $100,000 loan and the $27,000 I had earned from business these past few days, all into the card. I only kept a little over $2,000 in cash for spending money. Carrying too much cash outside makes it easy to get robbed. After finishing these things, I looked at my watch. It was already past 9 in the morning. It was time to go find the two little rascals. I patted Tom's shoulder and said with a smile, "Old Tom, thank you this time. I'll treat you to a meal next time I have time." Tom waved his hand, "It's okay, we're all brothers. If you have any problems, just tell me. As long as I can help, I definitely will." "Okay, I'm leaving now." With that, I left the bank. Tom watched my retreating figure, a worried look in his eyes. I hope my business venture can succeed this time. Absolutely don't fail. Otherwise, my life wouldn't be easy either, and I still had 3 children to raise. I quickly caught a bus to Lynn's apartment complex, continued to her house, and knocked on the door. "Who is it?" A childish voice came from inside. Hearing it, I also smiled, "It's Dad." As soon as my voice fell, a series of pitter-patter footsteps sounded from inside. Click. The door was pulled open from the inside by someone. Lily stood at the door, looking at me with a crinkle-eye smile. Beth followed closely behind and also came to the door. She looked up at me and smiled, "Dad." Good girl." I smiled and patted Beth's head, a smile also appearing on my face. "Come in, Dad." Lily called out towards the inside of the house. I replied with a sound and then stepped in. Not seeing Lynn, I smiled and asked, "Has your Auntie Lynn gone to work?" "Yes, Auntie Lynn has gone to work. She told us to be good and wait at home for Dad to come," Lily nodded and said. I nodded, smiled, and asked, "So, are you two ready?" "If you're ready, then let's go." "Ready," the two little rascals said in unison. Hearing this, I chuckled and then said, "Then let's set off." Then I led the two little girls by the hand and walked out the door. "Daddy, are we going to sell flowers today too?" Lily asked me on the way. She wanted to earn a lot of money so she could take her mom to the doctor. Hearing this, I shook my head, "We're not selling flowers today. We're going to buy computers." As soon as Beth heard this, she became excited. "Buy computers to open an internet cafe?" I chuckled. Lily looked at me and said, "But Daddy, aren't computers very expensive?" Lily was a little worried that I would spend too much money buying computers. Hearing this, I smiled, "Dad has money now. I can buy computers." Hearing this, Lily also nodded. She trusted her dad. I smiled and nodded, then led Lily by the hand, with Beth following behind, and walked to the computer store. I was no stranger to computers in my past life, and moreover, I was very familiar with computer configurations. So, I very quickly wrote down a list of computer configurations. Buying according to this configuration, at most, it would only cost $8,500 to buy a good computer. Adjusted currency and price based on 1999 context for a good PC. Original VAN implies 10,000 of local currency, so this is a rough equivalent for a high-end machine then. If I bargained a bit, it might even be cheaper. After writing the configuration list, I took the paper and started choosing computers in the stores. I led Lily and Beth into a store. The owner, Mr. Hu, was watching TV in the shop.
As soon as he saw me walk in, he immediately became enthusiastic. "Hello, sir, may I ask what you're looking to buy?"
I glanced at Mr. Hu and then said, "Boss, I want to open an internet cafe, so I plan to buy a few computers." Mr. Hu was a bit stunned when he heard this. Opening an internet cafe in this era required a lot of capital.
Then Mr. Hu asked with some doubt, "Young man, are you sure you want to open an internet cafe?" Hearing this, I smiled and nodded, saying cheerfully, "Yes, I plan to open an internet cafe." "Then how many computers do you want to buy?" Mr. Hu asked with a smile.
Hearing Mr. Hu's question, I thought for a moment, then replied, 11.
11.
Mr. Hu frowned upon hearing this, surprised.
The price of 11 computers wasn't cheap.
If it was a normal internet cafe, at most it would be around 5.
Some people even opened a shop with just 2.
He didn't expect this young man in front of him to plan to buy as many as 11 computers.
"What's wrong? Is there any difficulty?" I asked doubtfully.
Mr. Hu quickly shook his head and explained, "No, young man, let me tell you, computers aren't cheap nowadays."
"Are you sure you have enough capital?" I chuckled. I already knew what Mr. Hu was thinking. Immediately, I opened my mouth, "Don't worry, I have enough capital."
Hearing this, Mr. Hu looked at me in surprise. It seemed he had underestimated this young man. Mr. Hu also didn't expect this young customer to be so generous, wanting to buy so many computers at once.
Not only that, but this person had an extraordinary temperament and exuded a mature aura. He probably wasn't an ordinary person.
Immediately after, Mr. Hu smiled and said, "If the young man has money, then I naturally have no problem."
"It's just, my friend, what kind of computer configuration are you looking for?"
"My computer store has a very high network speed, and moreover, the configurations are relatively complete and can meet your needs." I took out the paper with the computer configuration written on it from my pocket and handed it to Mr. Hu. "Here, boss, please help me according to this paper."
Hu glanced at the paper I handed him.
He took the paper, examined it carefully, and very quickly, he realized that the configuration I provided was a new generation high-end configuration.
"Can you assemble the full set here?" I asked Mr. Hu with a smile.
"Yes.
Of course, yes." Mr. Hu smiled and nodded. I nodded, then looked at Mr. Hu. "Boss, then for this configuration, how much is one computer approximately?"
Mr. Hu smiled. "This set of computers is around $9,000, but young man, your computer configuration is high, so I'll give you a 10% discount, about $8,600 each. Adjusted pricing for 1999 high minus NPC." Hearing this price, I smiled and shook my head. "Boss, I can't take this price of yours."
"Why?" Mr. Hu asked doubtfully.
I smiled at Mr. Hu. "Boss, I made this computer configuration myself."
"How could I not know the prices involved?"
This.
Mr. Hu was a bit speechless.
He originally wanted to take the opportunity to overcharge, but he didn't expect the other person to be an insider.
Mr. Hu glanced at me. $8,600 each.
Adjusted pricing for 1999 high minus NPC. Hearing this price, I smiled and shook my head. "Boss, I can't take this price of yours."
"Why?" Mr. Hu asked doubtfully.
I smiled at Mr. Hu. "Boss, I made this computer configuration myself."
"How could I not know the prices involved?"
This.
Mr. Hu was a bit speechless.
He originally wanted to take the opportunity to overcharge, but he didn't expect the other person to be an insider.
Mr. Hu glanced at me. $8,300, can't go any lower. Hearing this, I shook my head. $8,000, what do you think, boss?
"Young man, I really can't go any lower.
Otherwise, I won't make any profit on this batch,"
Mr. Hu said with a somewhat complaining expression.
Seeing Mr. Hu's complaining expression, I chuckled. "My bottom line is $8,000. If you think it's okay, then it's okay." Mr. Hu saw my determined look and knew it was definitely not negotiable anymore.
He sighed, then nodded. "Kid, you're really good at bargaining."
"All right then, $8,000. Although he earned a little less profit, who could argue when the customer was a big one, wanting to buy 11 units this time? He couldn't let it slip away.
Seeing this, I smiled and nodded at Mr. Hu. "Boss, then when my internet cafe is set up,
I'll come by them. It'll just be in these few days. Okay, then take care, young man. Mr. Who waved at me.
I nodded, then went to take Lily's and Beth's hands, who were standing by, and left the computer store. After the three of us left, Mr. Who glanced at the computer configuration paper on the table, couldn't help but smack his lips.
It seemed this big shot was planning to open a large internet cafe.
11 computers, even at $8,000 each, that was already $88,000.
At this time, even in the bustling May 1st Square area, the internet cafes with the most computers only had about 8. For me to buy 11, he didn't know where I planned to open it. But no matter where I opened it, if I bought computers from him, he would still make money. I led the two little girls home. On the way, Lily looked at me and said, "Daddy, buying so many computers must have cost a lot of money. Later, I'll give you the money we earned these past few days. You take it and use it." "No need. Dad has saved up quite a bit of money these past few days." "That's your pocket money. How can Dad use it?" I shook my head and refused. Lily pouted at me, "Daddy, how much could you have earned from your salary this month? How could you have so much money? Just take it. Besides, that amount isn't much." Hearing this, I chuckled.
I dotingly smiled and patted Lily's head. "Good girl, Lily, Dad isn't short of money."
"Oh, okay then," Lily nodded after hearing my explanation.
Then, I took the two little girls home and started cooking lunch for them. After lunch, I wanted to quickly open the internet cafe to make money, so I prepared to go out and look for a storefront. I looked at Beth and Lily and said, "Lily, Beth, you two take a nap at home.
Dad is going out for a while."
Beth asked doubtfully, "Daddy, where are you going?" "Dad is going to look around for a storefront to rent," I explained, looking at Beth and Lily. I wanted to open the internet cafe near Sarah's house, so it would be convenient for me to take care of Sarah and the children. "Daddy, I'll go with you." As soon as Beth heard I was going to look for a storefront to rent nearby, she immediately stood up, her big, round eyes sparkling as she looked at me.
Lily also showed an eager expression to go with me. She looked at me and said, "Daddy, take us with you. We know the roads around here very well."
Hearing this, I looked at the two little girls, thought for a moment, and then opened my mouth. "Okay, you two come with Dad to find a storefront."
With that, I led the two little girls out.
I led the two little girls around the nearby area, starting to search for a suitable storefront.
Finally, I noticed a storefront near the train station. This train station area had a very large flow of people.
People came and went every day, and moreover, the transportation here was also very convenient, very suitable for opening an internet cafe.
Because many people coming and going by train would arrive at the station ahead of time.
Some people would arrive late at night when there were no buses and would choose to stay near the train station to wait. These periods were all times when I could make money. Although the storefront I chose was a bit hidden, not on the main street, the area of this shop was not small. At that time, I could spend a little money, hang an internet cafe sign in a conspicuous position, so passers-by would know where it was at a glance and would come.
Because I discovered that there were still no internet cafes in this train station area. I was the first one.
People who needed to go online, even if the internet cafe was opened in an alley, would still find it.
This shop isn't bad.
I looked at the area, estimating that the two floors combined must be around 2,000 square feet, adjusted from 200 square meters. I nodded with satisfaction.
Lily tilted her head and looked at me. "Daddy, do you want to rent this storefront?" I nodded.
Lily blinked her intelligent eyes and said to me, "Daddy, I'll take you to find an uncle. Then renting this storefront might be a little cheaper."
I nodded. A little later, Lily led me towards the other side.
Lily led me and Beth to a place where people often play chess, then stopped and pointed to an old man wearing a faded white shirt, holding two chess pieces, playing chess over there. "Daddy, that's the Uncle Yi I told you about."
"Wait for me to go call him over."
Lily finished speaking and then ran over to call Uncle Yi.
"Uncle Yi, this is my dad," Lily said, walking over to my side with a smile.
Old Mr. Yi looked at me, very surprised. The story of Sarah raising 3 triplets alone was very famous in the area around this train station, so he also knew about it. The adults around here were all quite concerned about the 3 little girls. Unexpectedly, the father of the three little girls had now returned. It was good that he returned. With a man to help Sarah and her four, the mother and children wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. He smiled and nodded at me. Lily just told me. You want to rent old Lynn's storefront? He should be home around this time. Follow me, I'll take you to find old Lynn. Sorry to trouble you, uncle, I nodded. Old Mr. Yi led me to the landlord's house. The landlord's name was Lin Yu, or an American equivalent like Mr. Woods. After a round of introductions by old Mr. Yi, Mr. Woods looked at me in surprise. He said to me, "This storefront of mine, you need to rent both the upper and lower floors at once." This storefront of his, because its location was relatively remote, and it was large, and also required renting both floors at once, so after the previous tenant returned it, it had been half a year and still hadn't been rented out. I said, "Okay, I've already seen the place." Mr. Woods nodded, then smiled and asked me, "What are you renting my storefront for?" "I want to open an internet cafe," I said with a smile. Old Lin looked at me in surprise and chuckled, "Young man, opening an internet cafe in this era requires a lot of money." "I have my ways with money matters," I said with a faint smile, looking at old Lin. Hearing me say this, old Lin looked at me in surprise, observed me for a while, and found that although I was dressed simply, I had an indescribable heroic temperament. He smiled and said, "All right, this storefront of mine requires a deposit of 3 months and 1 month's rent, with a monthly rent of $2,300. Hearing this, I was stunned. A 3-month deposit, and moreover, this rent was a bit high. Finally, thanks to my persistent bargaining, Lily and Beth chiming in, and old Mr. Yi helping to speak up, the rent was reduced to $2,000 a month, and moreover, only a 1-month deposit was required. This way, the capital I had on hand would be a little more flexible. Because renting a storefront also required renovating the shop, all of which cost money. Saving every penny counted. After agreeing, Mr. Woods and I signed the lease agreement. I drafted the contract myself and then took it to a print shop to make 2 copies. The 2 of them looked it over, found no problems, and then signed it. After signing the contract and paying the money, old Lin gave me the keys. After thanking old Mr. Yi, I led Lily and Beth to the newly rented storefront. As soon as I opened the door, the 2 little girls ran inside. "Wow! Daddy, this shop is so big!" Beth exclaimed in surprise after seeing the shop. Lily and Beth ran back and forth in the shop, looking at this new place. The 2 of them really liked it. After looking at the storefront, I didn't want the 2 little girls to run around with me. I felt sorry for them. I took Lily and Beth back to Lynn's house. Then, I took the documents and prepared to go to the Bureau of Commerce and Industry to apply for a business license. Although the management of internet cafes in 1999 wasn't very strict, I wanted to do it big, and I also didn't hope for any mistakes in this regard later on. I took the documents to the Bureau of Commerce and Industry and happened to run into Tom at the entrance. Tom had just finished his business at the Bureau of Commerce and Industry and was coming out. Seeing me, he smiled and walked over to greet me. "Jack, what are you doing at the Bureau of Commerce and Industry?" I smiled and nodded. "Yeah, I just secured a storefront today. I'm here to register for a business license so I can open for business." Tom glanced at the documents in my hand and said with a smile, "Come on, I'll take you to do it. I have acquaintances here who can help you get the business license faster and open for business sooner. Without a business license, you couldn't open for business. If reported to the Bureau of Commerce and Industry, not only would you be fined, but there would also be other troubles." I smiled. "Okay, then I'll trouble you." "No trouble at all. I also want your internet cafe to open soon and start making money," Tom said with a smile, leading me into the Bureau of Commerce and Industry. A little later, the business license was processed, but it was too late today, and the certificate couldn't be obtained immediately. It would be available tomorrow morning. I could pick it up tomorrow morning. Having acquaintances really made things easier. The next day, I still went to the countryside to sell tea seed oil cake first, then delivered the purchased eels to the eel noodle shop. After finishing, I deposited the $2,000 I earned today into my bank card. Then I went to the Bureau of Commerce and Industry to pick up my business license. Standing at the entrance of the bureau, I lit a cigarette. Then, my eyes lit up. I caught a bus and, following my memory, went to Wancheng District. Because the internet cafe storefront was already rented, and I could get the business license tomorrow.
Before opening, I had to renovate the internet cafe.
So, at this time, I had to find a renovation contractor. My family used to live in Changjiang district, so I knew a little about this place. I remembered the main contractor who had done renovations for my family in my past life. I remembered that contractor's surname was Chen, and his name was Chun Hai.
David Chen and my father had a good relationship.
Moreover, I heard my parents say that after my family went bankrupt, we still owed David Chen $5,000 that hadn't been paid. Arriving at Stone Road area in Wangcheng district, I couldn't quite remember the specific location of Uncle David's house. Because too many years had passed, and moreover, I had only been to Uncle David's house once in my past life.
I asked the residents, and very quickly, I found Uncle David's address. It was a dilapidated house in a small alley. I gently knocked on the iron gate. "Who is it?"
A man's voice came from inside the house. "It's me, Jack Carter," I called out. A long time later, the door opened, and a man with a full beard appeared.
"Jack Carter?" David Chen looked at me in surprise. "Uncle David," I called out.
David Chen laughed heartily, pulled my hand, and asked, "Jack, how did you find your way here?"
"Are you looking for me for something?" "It's like this, Uncle David.
I plan to open an internet cafe, so I want to invite you to help me renovate the storefront," I said while handing a cigarette to David Chen.
Hearing I wanted to open an internet cafe, David Chen was extremely surprised.
Opening an internet cafe in this era, although it made money, the initial investment cost was too large, and moreover, it required too much capital.
Ordinary people couldn't afford it.
"Jack, have you thought it through?"
David Chen asked.
Originally, David Chen wanted to ask about my family's debt situation, but after thinking about it, he still didn't ask.
After all, this wasn't something good.
Moreover, seeing me starting a business again, he definitely had to encourage me a bit.
I nodded. "I've thought it through. I have some money on hand that I can invest."
Hearing this, David Chen joyfully patted my shoulder and chuckled, "Well done, I believe in you."
"How are your parents doing lately?"
David Chen asked, taking a drag of his cigarette and looking at me. Thinking back to those years, he himself had also benefited from my parents' help, receiving renovation orders from my parents, and only then did he gradually climb to the position of main contractor. Now seeing me starting a business, he was also happy for me in his heart. I still hadn't gone home to visit my parents, but based on my memories from my past life, my parents' health was still very good at this time. Although both of them worked hard to earn money for the family, those hard days were filled with hope.